I think this is going to be my last video on the topic because I already made 2 of them. But it's a very important topic because it seems as if there's a whistleblower from Facebook with a history of donating money to Act Blue, to AOC's campaign, being schooled by a PR company that also worked for Obama, and now she's going in the Senate hearing and she is validating every single talking point that the authoritarians have on why the government should pressure the corporations that have a monopoly over the internet to control what people say, to control what people speak, to decide what gets to be said or not. Because if you don't do this, it's an end to democracy. If people aren't controlled on the internet right now, democracy is going to end. And she's literally like a puppet on a string, equipped with a donate button. Like you pull the string and she goes, yes, 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 absolutely, yes, yes. Look at this.
So you agree that Congress has to enact these special protections for children and teens that stop social media companies from manipulating young users and threatening their well-being, to stop using its algorithm to harm kids. You agree with that?
I do believe Congress must act to protect children.
And children and teens also need a privacy online Bill of Rights. I'm the author of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act of 1998. But it's only for kids under 13 because the industry stopped me from making it age 16 in 1998 because it was already their business model. But we need to update that law for the 21st century. Tell me if this should pass. 1, create an online eraser button so that young users can tell websites to delete the data they've collected about them. 2, give young teens under the age of 16 and their parents control of their information. And 3, ban targeted ads to children.
I support all those actions.
Thank you. And finally, I've also introduced the Algorithmic Justice and Online Platform Transparency Act, which would, 1, open the hood on Facebook and big tech's algorithms so we know how Facebook is using our data to decide what content we see, and 2, ban discriminatory algorithms that harm vulnerable populations online, like showing employment and housing ads to white people, but not to black people in our country. Should Congress pass that bill?
Algorithmic bias issues are a major issue for our democracy. During my time at Pinterest, I became very aware of the challenges of, like I mentioned before, it's difficult for us to understand how these algorithms actually act and perform. Facebook is aware of complaints today by people like African Americans saying that Reels doesn't give African Americans the same distribution as white people. And until we have transparency and our ability to confirm ourselves that Facebook's marketing messages are true, we will not have a system that is compatible with democracy.
Oh, the children, oh, Facebook is hurting the children. Yes, absolutely. You know, let's not talk about divorce rates. Those aren't hurting the children, but I went through these talking points, so I won't say them again, but it was just so painful to watch. Jesus, it was again like a puppet that you pull the string and she's, yes, absolutely, more regulation. Democracy is important. Unless we use fascist tactics, then democracy is going to fall down. Because you see, the government can't censor, but the private company can. So if the private company can just help the government a little bit for the public good, just help the government a little bit, then maybe the private company can receive some kickbacks from the government. Maybe a little bit of a revolving door can happen, and then we can save our democracy. It's very interesting that this is happening a little bit before the elections, isn't it? Especially when the Democrats are on the ropes on almost every single issue imaginable. Foreign policy, they're not doing very well. The approval rating is kind of down. The economy, do you really want me to get into that? The only thing that they even have like some remote support, believe it or not, among left-wing people, happens to be with the way they're handling the corona, the way they're handling the pandemic. And even that is dropping. So all of a sudden, let's go to the platform that has the biggest amount of boomers there, Facebook, right? We're not going to TikTok where the kids are. No. We're going to Facebook. And we're going to ask them to do what they always wanted to do, which is to censor more. And we're going to ask them to censor very ambiguous things like, well, hate speech, harm. Not things that are clearly defined, just very subjective things. So anyway, I said this before, but this is very important. If anything needs to come out from this conversation is that you should imagine if a whistleblower came out and it would turn out that he has a history of right-wing activism, that he donated money to conservative groups, that he donated money to Republicans, that he was coached by Steve Bannon, and then he goes in front of the Senate and validates every single right-wing talking point. What do you think left-wingers would say in that situation? Because what they would say in that situation is exactly what right-wingers should say now. And let's see what right-wingers are saying now, shall we?
Shaping up to be a bad week for Facebook, the company experiencing massive worldwide outages across its platforms, as a Facebook whistleblower who gave the Wall Street Journal a trove, yes, a trove, of documents exposing how toxic the tech company is now going public. Troves.
Gutfeld, what are you doing, Gutfeld? I generally don't understand why they are using left-wing talking points. Like, for example, what he should be doing is to point out that this whistleblower claims that there was a civic integrity commission tasked with making sure there are no riots. And she says that up until the election, the commission was very successful. And she says that the commission on Facebook prevented riots in the US. But after the election, the commission was defunded because it costed Facebook money. And then you have like the horrible insurrection event. And I'm thinking, why is no one calling her out on this bullshit? Like, not a single senator, not a single media talking head. No one points out that before the election, there was the White House siege that was organized not only on Facebook, but the mainstream media gave it ample coverage. And the media was laughing and jiggling as the US president was escorted by the Secret Service in an underground bunker for safety. Like, that is fine, okay? That is not an insurrection. They don't mention all the riots that took place, which caused more damages than any other riots in US history. I guess the Facebook Civic Commission wasn't effective. So maybe, just maybe, here's my take. Maybe the commission wasn't effective at stopping riots, so that's why they defunded it.
The thing I saw at Facebook over and over again was there were conflicts of interest between what was good for the public and what was good for Facebook. And Facebook over and over again chose to optimize for its own interests, like making more money. The version of Facebook that exists today is tearing our societies apart and causing ethnic violence around the world. It chooses profit over safety. It is subsidizing, it is paying for its profits with our safety.
Facebook is trying to push back on the claims, saying the site reflects the good, the bad, and ugly of humanity. That should be a movie. You know, Jesse, I will say that the outages were a distraction from the whistleblower, and I stand by that.
What were these outages? Did we lose Facebook?
Yes.
Where have you been all day?
I didn't even know about
And
that.
Instagram and WhatsApp.
You know what? I'm not hooked on the screens like some people,
Okay.
Dana. I live my life. I read. I go to the library. I watch everyone laughing. Is it that clear that I don't go to the library?
No.
That's clear because no one does.
Here's what I thought when I saw this. This woman comes out and says, Facebook is tearing societies apart and is causing ethnic violence around the world. Okay. Last century, what did we have? The Russian Civil War, World War I, World War II, multiple ethnic cleansings all over almost every continent. There was no Facebook then. We're going to now blame Facebook for, like, 2021, not as deadly as most of these in terms of conflict and civil war as the last century. And then we're getting torn apart here. I don't know, civil war, civil rights movement, anti-war protests. 2021, we sit on our couches and we complain. That's as tough as it gets now. I wouldn't all of a sudden say Facebook is the root of all evil. The real root of all evil is people like CBS News executives who then point the finger at Facebook while it's them, the legacy media, that's actually tearing this country apart. All Facebook is doing is letting people interact and talk about all these evil things the regular media is doing, like suppressing news, putting out fake news, you know, racial hoaxes, all that kind of stuff. Those are the real villains.
So that's an amazing point, and he is 100% in the right, Because when Facebook decides which news to suppress and which news to promote, that is Facebook to blame. They're acting like a publisher. When Facebook makes terms of service and they tell people, hey, you can't talk about this or that, that is Facebook to blame. They're acting like a publisher. You can't sue them like you could sue a publisher because they're protected by the law from lawsuits. But that is their direct decisions. Now, what they're complaining, if you take, for example, Instagram, they're saying that Instagram is hurting kids. Why? Because you might have a young girl that posts a picture of herself, and because she's good looking, she's going to get a lot of likes. A lot of people are going to share that photo, and it's going to make other girls who don't have a body like her feel insecure. So that's literally the free market. That's literally like democracy in action. That's genuinely, putting a picture out there and people deciding what they like and what they don't. And the left is looking at it and it's like, why is Facebook doing this? Why did Facebook do this? It's almost like someone builds a road, and on that road you have a lot of expensive cars driving by, and there is someone in a poor house looking on the street and seeing all the expensive cars, and they're feeling insecure because they don't have the same amount of wealth to be able to buy those expensive cars. And it's like, why did the road builders do this? It's literally the same argument.
Real villains.
That was a pretty impressive defense of Facebook, and we should let everybody know that you're on their board. But
there's an opening.
You've actually changed the way I think about this in a way. Harold, I have a theory too that tech is always has a head start on humanity. So we build these things, and then we start using it, and then we don't know the effect it has on us until many years pass. And I think you could look at that at the highways and now the superhighways. Mm.
So if you think about what this was about here, and notwithstanding what Jesse said, they have internal documents that have been turned over, this whistleblower did, that showed that Facebook is aware of how some of their content is not altogether positive and healthy, and that it is addictive, particularly to young women. As a father of a 7-year-old who does not engage in who does not mess with social media, is on social media, and you think about some of the other things in this memo that said that they were aware that these young women were so conscious of how they looked, and it might have impacted them negatively. But
unbelievable. This is the conservative argument in 2021. Look, if in 2021 you don't know that you should keep your kids away from social media as long as humanly possible, I'm sorry, but you're a lemming. You should be off social media for as long as humanly possible. It's bad for you as well. Everything should be taken in moderation. I mean, oh my God, Facebook is making their product addictive. Newsflash, so does McDonald's. McDonald's know that their product isn't healthy. Do you think they give a shit? Let's see what else. The tobacco companies, the alcohol companies, why don't those get regulated? Oh, because they don't influence votes. I can't believe that you're looking at the most conservative program in the United States, which is Fox News. And instead of them saying, yes, like it should be the parents' responsibility to supervise what their kids are doing online, they're like, no, the company needs to educate my kids. Yes, I trust Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg needs to create a system that educates my kids so I can lock them in a room and I don't have to give a single fuck about them anymore. Give them a crack pipe and an Xbox, and that's it. That's their education, and then go to school so you can learn what else the government wants you to know. Whatever happened to the family unit? The children even need a mother and a father anymore, because apparently the corporations have it covered, right? I mean, the moment you take the kid away from the tit, you put him in front of the television, you put him in front of social media, you send him off to school, and you don't have to worry about it. He's going to grow an excellent human being, right? How do these people think? Oh my God, and if this is the logic, Fox News, why shouldn't the government regulate your station and what you say in your station? Why should free speech apply to you? Because now you're a danger to their democracy as well. Now look, I'm not defending Facebook here, because I do agree the problem is that Facebook is a publisher. The problem is that they get to suppress the news, they get to promote the news, they get to censor what they don't like. That is the problem. I genuinely want a democracy. I want to go on Facebook and I want to hear the exact same shit that I hear on the street. I don't want to go to a taxi driver or a hairstylist and hear opinions from them that are legal, but they would be banned on Facebook. I don't want to have citizens being cut off from the conversation by a for-profit multi-billion-dollar corporation that gets to decide who should have a voice and who shouldn't. That's what I don't like. The internet wasn't like that before Facebook came. I genuinely want diversity and inclusion of opinion. It is absolutely ridiculous that I go out and I speak with the working class people and they have opinions and they have takes that I may not agree with, but you know what? They're legal, and if they were to put them online, they would be banned in a second. That's how ridiculous it has gotten. Just go in any taxi cab that you can find and just talk with your taxi driver a little bit about politics, about anything. You know, I ask him about, I don't know, what is his take about non-binary people? Just pulling it out of my ass and see if what he says, you would be able to put it up on Twitter, if you would be able to put it up on Facebook, if you would be able to put it up on YouTube. How do I know? Like, how do I know that the random taxi driver you're going to go into his car is actually going to say shit that can't be put on social media? Do you think that's inclusive? Like, excluding a big chunk of the community? Why? Because they don't have money? Because they're the working class and they can easily be oppressed? That's why? And the solution apparently is more of that. Let's extend that. Let's just cut off their voice completely from the public square. Because now everyone gets to talk online. And the online space is controlled by a couple of corporations. And when Facebook came, before they had the monopoly, they were all about free speech. They invited people to join their platform. Hey, join us because we're going to guarantee to you free speech. And then everyone joined. And then they got the team of scientists to make sure that it's addictive, right? Because I'm not against it being addictive. I mean, I'm all for people learning self-control, not company learning how not to make things addictive. And then, once it got a monopoly, now it starts to manipulate people. It's like, okay, you're not allowed to talk about this, you're not allowed to talk about that. Oh, if you talk about this fringe shit, oh, we're going to promote it. You want to be popular? Talk about this radical fringe shit. Okay, enough with the radical fringe shit, we changed our mind. Now you get to talk about something else. So they're the ones that dictate the conversation now. That's what I'm against. I don't like that. And if they want to do that, fine, but they shouldn't be protected from lawsuits. And the other conversation should be about parents. I don't know when the idea that the parent should be behind the wheel has been out of vogue. But clearly, like right now in the United States, parents might be domestic terrorists because the FBI is going to start cracking on them because they're upset about what's being taught in schools. And apparently they're so dangerous, like those mothers are so dangerous that even the local cops can't handle it anymore, so they had to call in the FBI and other governmental agencies. It's very dangerous, right? The parent being concerned about what kids learn is a national disaster. Okay, fine. Corporations should never be in charge of educating children, ever. A soulless corporation cannot offer the love, kindness, and compassion that parents can give. And if that's the case, if you genuinely think that the government and the corporations are more likely to give a better education to children, then why aren't you for orphanages? Like every child, the moment he has been given birth, he should be taken away from the mother, placed in a shelter, run by a corporation, and paid for by the government. How about that, huh? Would that make a better system? Because clearly in the minds of the enlightened, it definitely is better than to grow up in a conservative household. Even the conservatives have stopped arguing for raising kids and educating them. So I'm sorry if I went in a little rant. Hopefully I did manage to amuse you a little bit. Made you smile a little, but I just wanted to show you the absolute state of the conservative movement. It's like, yes, we definitely agree with the left. Okay, vote with the left then. Yes, the whistleblower revealed a lot. Vote for the Biden administration to regulate Facebook, and then let's see how you're going to fare in the next election, conservatives.